These Democratic leaders are simpletons. They're servants of the donor class. So they go in there like, oh, donor, give me money, please. And I made an ad. I'm Kamala Harris. I'm full of joy. Okay, well, what did that get you? And they say, oh, Jake, you're too angry. Too angry? What? You think, does Donald Trump look like he's kind? Does he look like he's in a good mood? I mean, no, people want some sort of reaction from their politicians. They want them to represent them, to fight for them. But that has never occurred to a Democrat outside of Bernie Sanders, and probably we never will. So look, I have no interest in listening to a single Democratic politician ever again.
That's Cenk. He's Young Turks, right? Yes. Cenk is not okay, but I kind of get what there's an element there that I understand, maybe not in the Bernie Sanders realm, but did the Democrat Party listen to the American people? Should the Democrat Party be surprised today that Donald Trump wins with a mandate? I don't know. You know who might have a thought on this? Deroy Murdock, our friend. We have results, Deroy, and you are back on the show with us, a nationally syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor. What a pleasure it is to speak with you today, Deroy Murdock.
Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day.
Exactly. I mean,
after all these months of suspense, finally a happy ending.
Yes, not polls, not anticipation, just hardcore results. Your thoughts on last night's results as they came in?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm pleasantly surprised that you and I are able to talk about a conclusion to this endless campaign on Wednesday afternoon. Of course, we could have done this probably about almost exactly 12 hours ago. I thought we probably wouldn't have any clear results maybe till tonight or Thursday or something like that. And in fact, we had a winner declared by Fox News last night at about 1:20 Eastern time. When Trump won in 2016, it wasn't until 2:40 a.m. And then when Biden won last in 2020, it wasn't until I think about roughly 10:11 a.m. on Saturday. So, whether people are happy or unhappy with the result, at least we have a solid result as of last night, which is when we should hear who's elected on the election night. What a concept! As for the substance of it, this is a complete blowout by Donald J. Trump, winning as of now 292 electoral votes. The so-called blue wall turned bright red with the Republican victories in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. He won the popular vote. First time in 20 years, Republicans won the electoral vote and the popular vote, and wasn't close. It's by about 4.8 million. They're still counting ballots, but I'm sure that will stick. So this man has a clear mandate, a clear support among the public for his agenda, and the Democrats are just wiped out. People are sick and tired of all the spending, absurd, ridiculous government programs that don't work, the destruction of our southern border, roughly 10 million people brought in here without any invitation, without papers, without visas and passports. And bad enough they come in, but then they cut in front of Americans who are waiting in line for all sorts of public services, and they get treated first while Americans end up in second place. This whole concept of, let's talk to our 8, 9, and 10-year-old boys and girls about whether they're really boys or they're really girls or are they something else, and let's talk about sex before they're able to spell the word. I think people the American public looked at all that and just hurled it back up at the Democrats, and they now have to sit down on some hard chairs and decide, are they going to stand up for what they were before, which is basically, let's help the poor be more prosperous and let's focus on that, or are they going to be the party of endless mandates and nonstop regulations and exotica and ridiculous cultural nonsense? And if they don't get the message, then I hope at 2026 we wipe them out even further and push them further into where I want them to be eventually, which is behind plexiglass somewhere in the Smithsonian Institution.
We're speaking with our friend Deroy Murdock, a nationally syndicated columnist, Fox News contributor. We ask a poll every day to our audience on our YouTube channel, and today's is, so what happened in the election results? Do you think that Donald Trump effectively won this campaign? Do you think Kamala Harris lost this campaign with the way that they ran, the decisions that they made, the things they did and didn't do? Or do you think it's a combination of the two?
I think it's definitely a combination of the two. I think that Kamala Harris's first big mistake was, and I'm sure other people have said this, picking Tim Walz rather than Josh Shapiro. If she'd picked Josh Shapiro, they, I think, would have had Pennsylvania locked up. Instead of spending a whole lot of time and money and effort there trying to win that and then losing it, they could have focused their energies on winning other states and maybe, in fact, win Michigan, maybe, in fact, win Wisconsin, what have you. Number one. Number two, Walz turned out to be just, I mean, he said it himself, a knucklehead, as he said in his debate. I thought the debate went terribly, and he's just kind of a very strange guy, and I don't think added anything to the ticket. Whereas Shapiro, whether, I'm sure we don't agree with him on many issues, but he's very well spoken. He's very polished. If you listen to the way he talks, he basically, I think, watched a lot of Obama's speeches and adopted that Obama-like speaking style. So he's sort of like a white Obama in terms of the way he speaks, which is very effective, and that would have been very smart. She needed to figure out some way to separate herself from Joe Biden and say, look, I like the guy. I'm really grateful he picked me, but, I would have done one thing. I would have closed Bagram Air Force Base last and evacuated Afghanistan from there rather than close it first. If she could point to one thing and say I would have done that differently, it would have been given her something to say other than like, gee, I can't think of one thing I would have done differently, which is ridiculous. And then I think Donald J. Trump, to his credit, as he did in 2016 and 2020, just campaigned like crazy. I think he did 4 rallies yesterday. He did endless podcasts. He did interviews. He did press conferences. He seemed to be having a great time doing the McDonald's appearance there, working the fryer. The other day when we showed up wearing a reflective vest on stage, and before that, driving a garbage truck that said Trump Vance on it to make fun of Biden's comment that we're all a bunch of garbage. That got great laughs, and he just always looked relaxed and self-confident and that sort of thing. Well, meanwhile, she hid in the basement, wouldn't do interviews for the longest time. When she did come out and give interviews, she gave terrible answers. And even, last night she didn't show up at her rally or her, I guess, wake, if you will, and say, look, she could have come out and said, listen, thank you for coming. We're still counting ballots. We'll see what happens. I'm glad you're here. And, I look forward to being your next president. And people would have walked away with some sense of dignity that even if she, is losing, at least she could show her face. Instead, she sent one of her minions out, didn't bother to show up. And I think she's going to show up at finally 4 o'clock this afternoon and give a concession speech. But she couldn't even make an appearance before her supporters yesterday, which I thought was very weak.
I want to ask you, Deroy, about what the Republicans can learn from this moment, because even though there's a victory, that doesn't mean you can't look back and reflect on what worked and maybe what didn't work so well. What do you think that the Republican Party needs to do going forward to make sure that the momentum continues in their direction?
Good question. I think the outreach to minorities was tremendous. I believe Trump got something like 41% of the Hispanic vote, if I remember correctly, maybe even higher. That was a big part of his victory. The outreach to black voters also added to his column. That was enormously helpful. In terms of what could the campaign or what could the party do differently, I think there should have been a much stronger outreach to female voters. I didn't see much of that. I know this came up a couple times certainly in the first debate that Trump did against Biden. What's your plan on child care? I think it was asked a question. He talked about something else. And okay, again, the question is, what's your plan on child care? And he didn't have one. I'm not sure exactly what the answer is, but he needs something other than no answer. So I think more of an outreach to women would have been important. There was definitely an outreach to black men. Why not an outreach to black women? That would have been important. I think simply talking about school choice is a big plus. I mean, that's something that obviously appeals to mothers, certainly appeals to black moms. I heard less about school choice than I would have liked. And I always think, I guess it was too big to rig last night, thankfully. But I think there needs to be a real focus on vote fraud, I think we ought to get back to Election Day with voter ID, with paper ballots, with making sure the voter rolls are honest and not filled with dead people and people who've moved away and illegal aliens and so forth, foreign citizens of whatever kind. So I think we may have made some progress in election integrity, but I think there's a long way to go, and that needs to continue.
We're speaking with Deroy Murdock, our friend and Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated columnist as well. Now, let's talk about the Democrats. I did tune in to The View today. Couldn't not do it, and I've never done that before.
It's on my DVR. I'm actually going to watch that a little bit later.
I didn't even know what time it actually started, but because I always see clips, but I've never been like appointment watching here.
Right.
Some of them I was impressed with some of the ways that they spoke on it, but others, Sunny Hostin in particular, man, she's very, very upset about the outcome, and there's a lot of blaming on the voters for being too stupid to understand what to do in this election. What do you think that the Democrat Party's takeaway should be, and what do you think they will do?
I'm sorry about all the emergency equipment.
That's okay,
I've got police and fire.
as long as you're
out.
safe.
Hopefully my building is not burning down. As maybe our last interview, Annie.
No, don't do that.
So the folks on The View, well, again, it's just the deep denial. It's the voters' fault. The voters are stupid. They don't understand that Trump is Hitler. Blah blah blah. And we hear all this nonsense. I would say to them, why don't you, The View, Sonny Halston, and the others, sit down and figure out, what did you do wrong? What is it about? Despite all the warnings about, death camps, I suppose, and everything else, the American people still showed up and a majority voted for him. It could be they like the message of prosperity. They appreciate the fact that not that many years ago, 4 years ago when Trump was president, we had a booming economy. We had no new wars. We had 4 Middle East peace agreements. Crime was falling. And people generally, until COVID came along and wrecked everything, people were generally happy. And maybe people want more of the same. And so maybe the Democrat Party and the left should figure out how do we try to implement that model as opposed to what they have now is just high taxes, high spending, resentment. I don't know if you heard about this situation here in New York about Peanut the squirrel. Has that gotten out there at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that made it through.
What a perfect example of out of control government. This guy has a squirrel he adopted because the mommy squirrel got hit by a car, I guess. So he adopted a baby squirrel, kept it as a pet for 5 or 6 years, and for some reason or other, the New York State Department of Wildlife Control or Environmental Protection, whatever, they set up a raid with 10 different people who went in, raided his house for 5 hours, took the squirrel out, took out a raccoon apparently he had, and euthanized them. So they saved the squirrel and raccoon by killing them. Now, we have here in New York City where I live, we have rape, we've got murder, out of control illegal aliens, smash and grab, thefts, and all this stuff. And the government for which I pay money in New York State, not New York City, but still the same state, cops I'm paying for are running down and invading this guy's house, 10 of them, having a SWAT type of a raid, and it ends up they're trying to save the poor baby squirrel, and they kill it, which is this beautiful little pet this guy had, which he took care of from the moment its mother was killed by a car. And we're spending money and time on that. This is what you get when you vote Democrats, and you get out of control, expensive government just wreaking havoc and destruction. And I think a poor little dead squirrel, may his soul rest in peace, is just a perfect example of what was rejected by the American people yesterday at the polls.
Yes, completely. Deroy, you don't have a squirrel in your apartment there, do you? Is that what those police are for?
Maybe they're coming in looking for squirrels. I don't know. I like squirrels, but I've never had a pet squirrel. I enjoy them at a distance when they're in public parks and running up trees.
Well, Deroy, we appreciate everything that you've been able to share with us leading up to last night's results and today. And I look very much forward to our conversations in the future having a much more forward-thinking, positive tone because we've got good news to celebrate, and we're always glad to celebrate it with you.
Well, I look forward to a lot less doom and gloom and a lot more happy days.
Yes, happy days are here again. Thank you, Deroy.
All right, Annie. Thank you. Take care.
You as well. Bye-bye.